Welcome to another episode of Our Poor Decisions. Today, we'll do something I never thought would happen. We'll be drinking two wines that are both more than 100 years old. When these wines were made, Grover Cleveland was a president of the United States, and Queen Victoria ruled the British Empire. We'll take a sip of history and explain why Madeira was the go-to wine for George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and the American high society in the 17 and 1800s.
That's not what I was expecting.
Join us on this short expedition and find out what a 130-year-old wine tastes like.
All right, Pops, is Madeira a wine or a place?
So it's both. It's kind of like champagne, cognac, tequila, you name it. It's both specific in terms of how it's made, but also to where it's made. And Madeira is only made on the island of Madeira.
I'm just gonna be upfront about this. I had no idea where Madeira was until we started filming.
And I'll admit to the same. Today we're opening two exceptional bottles of Madeira from 1894 and 1898. Imagine that. Not only are we taking sips of history, we're really looking at a wine and an island that played a significant part of the trade routes back in the 17th and 18th centuries. Madeira is a small island located 300 miles off the coast of Morocco and played a significant role in the global trade for centuries. After the island was officially discovered by Zarco the Squinter in 1419, it was named Madeira, which means wooded in Portuguese. At the time, the island was densely wooded and uninhabited by humans. It was then populated by Portuguese sometimes after 1420. For about 150 years, Madeira's main export was sugar, but all that changed with the slave trade and sugar production in Brazil and other colonies. From around 1600, wine became the main export for Madeira, and Madeira wine was soon shipped to every part of the world. Today, Madeira is an autonomous region of Portugal with a population of about 250,000 and a member of EU.
I'm not sure how I would feel if I was known as Captain Zarco the Squinter.
Well, poor Captain Zarco lost his eye fighting the Moors. And this was the beginning of the age of exploration, and the Portuguese and Spanish dominated the seas for, well, almost 300 years after that.
I'm surprised the wines didn't get spoiled from getting shipped around in barrels like that.
You're right about it. And the thing is, they would fortify the wine, which means they add neutral spirits to it and to bring the alcohol level up to about 20%. And it's not unlike what you would do for port.
And these two bottles of wine, they're actually 130 years old?
Yes, they are.
And you think they're gonna be great?
I think they're gonna be fantastic. Madeira can be aged almost indefinitely. They are some of the most age-worthy wines around. The two Madeiras we're opening today were made by Henriques Henriques, which is one of the most famous Madeira producers. Both wines are Solera Madeiras and produced according to the Quintero process. The 1894 Founders Solera was started in 1894 and closed in 1899. By our math, this means that about 59% of the wine is from 1894 and the rest from the vintages from 1895 through 1899. The Solera bottlings were popular back in the days when they had to deal with vine disease and highly variable harvests. The Founders Solera is made from the Malvasia grape. The wine was bottled in 2010, and there are only 760 bottles made. The 1898 Verdelho Solera was of course started in 1898, and it was closed in 1903. There were two bottlings of this wine, one in 2010 and one in 2011. In total, only 1,840 bottles were made. And Verdelho in this case refers to the grape variety which this Madeira is made from. Most Madeiras are made from red grape, the Negromole. These old Madeiras were made from white grapes, the Malvasia and Verdelho grapes. You'll also see Madeira made from Boal and Setzial, which are also white grapes.
Welcome, Stacey.
Thank you.
So this is the oldest wine I've ever had. What about you?
Same.
What is a situation where someone would be drinking Madeira?
Anytime. I could drink Madeira at lunchtime, at dinner time, with soup, salads, with fish, with cheese boards, special occasions, with apple pie. Anytime I could drink Madeira.
What about these specific bottles?
So these specific bottles are probably going to be your special occasion Madeiras, right? They are old. They have tons of acidity and flavor to them. They can be all by themselves. You can celebrate occasions. You can have them with apple pie. they're going to be great for all those things.
But they've kind of fallen out of favor, is that correct?
Yeah, that's a sad thing. I think there's been a really interesting history for Madeira and rises and falls between disease pressure and prohibition, and then other imports coming our way. Sweet wines and wines with this kind of complexity to them have kind of fallen out. So the average public doesn't really drink Madeira anymore.
Can you kind of talk more about the history? I know my dad loves to hear all that nerdy stuff.
Well, let's geek out about the history then. So Madeira has been around since like the 1500s. It was one of the first wines that really took off in the British colonies or America. And there was a time when the Brits wouldn't allow you to import anything from Europe unless it came on a British ship. And somehow Madeira, being so close to Africa, kind of got exempt from that rule. So this was the wine that we could have. And it was used to celebrate signing of the Declaration of Independence. And it was George Washington's favorite drink. He had a pint of it with dinner every night. Thomas Jefferson collected crazy amounts of Madeira.
Pint a night? I think I can go for that.
So this is like the most American drink you could drink without, going to Napa, I guess.
Well, you know the wine is sweet when there's a bug crawling on it?
Fruit flies.
Getting drunk. What's the first thing you need to know about drinking it?
So we can taste this just like we would any other wine. The glass is a little bit different, but it does have a little bit higher alcohol. So some of the sniffing that I do, I have my mouth open. When the alcohol is higher, it will actually kind of burn your nose out. This is only like 20 to 22%, so we don't have too much of a risk of that. But if you ever are doing like liquor tastings, definitely like open your mouth and kind of like waft it in.
Oh,
it's different.
B. It smells so
I feel
good.
stupid opening my mouth and sniffing it. It's kind of got like a caramel smell to it.
For sure. Now, both of these wines have that kind of caramelly, toasty notes to them on the nose. I think I've got the Verdelho, the 1898, in my left hand. Mm-hmm. And it is a little clearer, it's a little brighter. It's still that beautiful oxidized brown color, because these are both white grapes to begin with.
So you mentioned oxidization.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of the most fascinating aspects of making Madeira, right? Mm-hmm, it's tell us about what goes on.
So the first step, especially for these, which were aged in a Solera, which is a very unique process for Madeira, sherry still uses it, you're fractionally blending. So you have a barrel that starts out in 1898 with the wine from 1898. And as you get new vintages, you take 10% out and you add 10% of the new vintage. So you have barrels that you are continually opening, that are aging with oxygen, that are being exposed to oxygen, that are being stirred up as you're adding new wine in. So this oxygen is, first off, it's evaporating some of the wine off. So you're consolidating and condensing all of the good flavors. You're consolidating the alcohol. The things that are going away are basically the water that's in it.
But let me stop you here.
Yeah.
If you oxidize a wine, we've had oxidized wines on this show, and it ruins the wine, doesn't it?
So this is done intentionally and carefully. It also has a really interesting factor of the heat that's added to it, right? These wines accidentally.
So you oxidize it and you add heat.
Yes, up to 113, 140 degrees Fahrenheit. So they are shipping these wines fortified, like you mentioned earlier, in the barrels in the bottom of ships for sailors. Wine lasts longer in a ship than water, especially if you fortify it so that it doesn't go bad. But they didn't really think about the heat and how hot it was going to be, especially on these southern voyages. They're starting out in Africa, basically, where the island is. And so the wine cooked. And the winemakers in Madeira didn't even realize this was happening until an unsold barrel kind of made the full trip back. And they're like, what is happening? This is a totally different wine. Now it's delicious. So maybe we should do this on purpose.
So this whole process of heating the wine and rolling around in the barrels is all discovered by accident.
By accident.
So we're gonna start with the 1898?
Yes.
It's the clearer one.
It is a little lighter, yeah.
This smells like liquid candy.
It's
caramel, just
caramel and butterscotch.
Butterscotch, that's really it.
Ooh.
Oh, that's good. That's
good.
good.
Yes.
That's not what I was expecting at all.
You were so nervous.
I don't even know if I can describe what I'm tasting right now. A little sour, but a little sweet. Mm-hmm. But it's not sour in a bad way, like the Latache.
See, do you have to bring up Latache every time?
You bring up the Latache more than I do.
We've had oxidized wines on this show, and it ruins the wine. Good point. This is fantastic. What I love about it is that the acidity is there, and it stands up to the sweetness. So it has a lot of residual sugar, but the acidity makes it really delicious.
That acidity provides so much refreshment that's there. I can keep sipping on it instead of just being like, this is really thick and sweet. It's fantastic.
I could put this in my iced coffee.
Really?
Somebody call Dunkin' Donuts.
All right, so when I tasted it or smelled it right up front, I thought, well, this is kind of like a sherry.
The second one.
But it's really not.
It's really not. The saltiness, I don't think, is going to be there on the palate, right? And for me, the sherry does have a lot of that salty. Even the sweeter ones, there's a little bit of that kind of kick of it. But it's a very similar process. Oh, I'm waiting for your face. It was so good on the first one.
No, it's still good. I think I like the 1898 one better because it's less sweet. It's a little more acidic. I feel like there's a better balance of flavor.
Ooh, I think they're both really good. But I agree with you. I think the 98 has that crispness and it has the sweetness.
Yes.
And it's just totally delicious.
This could be dessert on its own. This, I think you can still sip it on its own. It's delightful. But there's like that acidic moment would be fun to pair with things.
I'm pleasantly surprised.
And I am too.
Same.
I cannot believe how delicious this is.
It's delightful.
And I also want to make sure that you understand we're not going to have 130-year-old Madeira every day.
I think I knew that already.
Well, I got to tell you, as far as Madeira goes, this is absolutely fantastic. This is way beyond expectations. Is it time for a cheers?
I think it is.
All right.
I'm gonna cheers with my favorite, the 98.
Jeff?
Love it.
Cheers.
Cheers. He wants the Madeira too. You get in the video this whole time.
Yeah, it's true. He's been walking back and forth behind us.
And he's gonna scratch me in the face any second.
Oh, come on, Rafa.